Hello, I'm Brad Hadank, and welcome to Sportspage. In this program, we talk with the athletes, coaches, and staff who work to make University of Central Missouri Athletics one of the premier college sports programs in the MIAA and Division II as a whole. This is Sportspage. Our first guest today is Mules Wrestling head coach Cody Garcia, who just wrapped up his third season as head coach for the Mules. This season just wrapped up for Mules Wrestling, and Coach Garcia in that season led UCM to a 9-5 overall dual record and went 3-2 in the MIAA. The season was recently capped off with Coach Garcia leading 4 Mules wrestlers to the NCAA Division II Wrestling Championships. In that national tournament, the Mules had 3 All-Americans and 1 national champion. So with that, we welcome Coach Cody Garcia to Sportspage.
Hey,
so Coach Garcia, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to start with that regular season, a 9-5 dual record, 3-2 in the MIAA. How do you gauge that kind of a season?
Well, it's pretty surreal, the fact that we haven't had a winning season since 2009. Not something that we even looked at or thought about, right? When I took over the program, I knew, it was something that we wanted to build on. But I honestly didn't know it had been that long. Really, we just performed well. I think these guys, it's just kind of the start of it, laying the foundation. There's a couple duels that we felt like we should have won. But I think it's a start, right? I think when you're able to do that and have success, builds hope, and hope is a pretty important component of success.
And that MIAA conference is an absolute gauntlet. That 3-2 record, how does that prepare you for the postseason and beyond there?
Well, you have references all through the year. I think that's when you can gauge where you're at, where you need to be consistently throughout the year. It keeps us humble, right? I think that's important too, but it also keeps us hungry to chase down, whatever greatness we have in front of us.
So looking at that postseason, you had 4 wrestlers make the NCAA Division II Wrestling Championships. How exciting was that number for this program?
I think it's an important number. I mean, the more bullets you have there, more impactful they can be, right? You're always going to be a little greedy. I think we had that tournament, and although we wrestled well, there were some guys that we left behind that we thought could have won matches in the national tournament, and hopefully that motivates them to close the gap on that version of them to be there next year.
So taking a look at those 4 wrestlers, one of them at the 133-pound weight class was James Wright. I know it maybe didn't end how he wanted to in the national tournament, but still a great run for the sophomore. How do you gauge his season?
I think, Ian, it's just kind of part of the plan a little bit. You look at his freshman year, wasn't necessarily planning on starting. We were going to redshirt him, but he stepped up and jumped in there. And then it's like last year was one of those things. Let's give James this opportunity, because this opportunity is going to give James what he needs to be successful next year. And really, it's pretty consistent throughout the year. Had some really tough losses, but he was in a lot of matches, right? He was able to wrestle with, highly ranked guys all year long. Just couldn't get on the other side of it. Then, towards the end of the season, I think his last 2 duels, he finally flipped the script enough that he figured out how to win those tough, gritty matches. And that's what it came down to. And he did that even at the national tournament, ended up making the blood round. He had a tough spot, though. He actually, his first round match was against the eventual national champ, and then he lost on the backside to the kid that ended up 5th. So, he knows he's right there, and that's an exciting thing. That's what we need out of him for him to kind of go get what he knows he can get next year.
And then looking at the 157-pound weight class, it's John Ridle for UCM. He earned All-American honors for the 2nd time and placed 6th. How do you gauge that season for John Ridle?
I think perseverance, right? You think about, you say 2-time All-American. It's been a couple of years, right? John has been through some injuries, had some different things go on where, we didn't know if we were able to get him back to that level, just because, sometimes life will throw things at you, injury-wise, that makes it tough for you to chase that down. And it takes some resilience, because, when you're going through some of that, you start to wonder, okay, is all this worth it? So I'm so grateful for him and so thankful that he got a chance to do that and finish his career as a 2-time All-American.
And then Damon Ashworth was an All-American for the 2nd year in a row at the 184-pound weight class. He ended up finishing 4th. How was that run? How was the season for Ashworth this season?
Unbelievable. It's again, he didn't maybe have the season that we thought he would have, but I think it was the season that he needed to have that performance that he had at the national tournament. A lot of the matches that he lost in season were matches that we felt like we could have won. We just couldn't get on, similar to James. But at the national tournament, and if it came down to will, if it came down to grittiness, Damon performed. He showed up when it mattered, and won, I think, 3 2 overtime match, one right at the last or end of the third period, and that's what you want to see, guys. I mean, because that's the difference, right? We finished 7th as a team. If he loses one of those matches, John, any of these guys lose one of those matches early that were maybe in the balance, that changes where we finish.
And then you had a national champion, Jason Burks, took the crown in the 125-pound weight class. Going into the Super Regional, he was ranked 4th in the nation. He won that tournament. Going into the national tournament, he was then ranked 1st. He won that one. You got to see his great season firsthand. How did you gauge that season? How was that like?
Well, I think it's just a pleasure to be in his corner. I think sometimes you just say thank you, right? You appreciate the fact that you get the best seat in the house to a great competitor, somebody that is special, right? He does some amazing things on the mat, and I think he works at it too. I think that's something he's earned that opportunity to be the #1 guy, and I think all year long he felt like he was the guy to beat. He just needed to go out and perform, and that's what he did.
And we've talked about that Super Region 4 tournament a little bit. You mentioned it was hosted here at UCM. How much of an advantage was that for your guys?
It's important, familiarity. Sometimes it's your perception of it's really important. I think you could look at it and say, man, maybe it's more stress, right? You got more people around you. When even as a coach, it's a little more of a challenge. Well, usually in that situation, we're in the hotel together. I know exactly what everybody weighs. I know we're going to ride over on the bus together in the morning. We're here, right? I love the familiarity and the fact that they get to be in their own bed, be close to family, but they also need to kind of draw the line to say, hey, this is, I'll come say hi to you, but then I need to go to bed. I need to get over to get my weight down, do all those things that we traditionally need to do before a big event like that.
And then earlier this season, talking about Jason Burks, he met #1 at the time, Stud Morris. That was exactly 2 weeks prior to that national championship day where he won it. You were talking to me and you told me how he was one of the best defensive wrestlers you ever coached. And you said he thrives in these moments because he was about to face the #1 ranked wrestler in the nation. How did that kind of sentiment ring true in the national tournament?
Again, he's built for it. You look at a guy that he wants those moments. He is at his best in those moments. He thrives in those. So that's what we were excited for him to get to that moment. Some part of it, you don't ever want to, you got to smell the rose a little bit as you go through, be where your feet are. But I think it's for him, you do look at March and you go, man, I can't wait to get there. And like I said, when that moment came, he was ready for it.
So this season, you were a very successful coaching run for yourself. Could you maybe talk our viewers through what it takes to be a successful wrestling coach? Talking about that national championship match, what is it that you do to play a role in that success?
Well, I think just give these guys, empower them to be accountable for, their actions, do the things they need to do, and really we're there to serve them. I think we're fortunate that I got good coaches around them, good teammates around these guys that build into them, give them confidence, give them courage. Maybe confidence isn't always the right word, right? Because it's going to waver, but I think when you have courage to say, if I go out there and give my best, effort and attitude, then I got to be at peace with whatever the results are and know that I've done the work. Now it's just the fun part and going out and competing.
And your team finished 7th in the national tournament with 43 total team points. That's the most ever in a national tournament in UCM wrestling history. What did it take to reach that historic point?
Well, I think, it was part of the plan a little bit. I think last year, it was kind of the plan for last year. And that's, for me to think my plan's more important than the bigger plan, I think sometimes will humble you too. I thought that was kind of what, in my vision for this program, I thought last year was going to be our, first time we'd get top 10 and just kind of build off of that. But that's part of it, right? I think it's something that, we needed to go through last year to have this year, and hopefully this year propels us into greater things moving forward.
And back in 1982, your father, Mike Garcia, was the first ever Mules Wrestling National Champion at 133. You coached Jason Burks this year, who won it at 125, and he's now the 6th National Champion in UCM history. Does that maybe feel like a full circle moment to you at all, to go just one weight class lower and coach that national champion?
Yeah, anytime, and not only my dad, but the amount of messages I receive from former Mules, they take a lot of pride, and it's an honor for us to honor them and the things that they did, and the tough times they went through. All that, you talk about a program that's been around for a long time to never be in the top 10, for this to be their moment, and it was their moment as well, right? I think that's the thing that we would really stress, that this is a we thing, right? This is everybody that's been a part of this program. They've created this opportunity, and not only because the things that they went through, but also their support. We've had a tremendous amount of support. We don't have a wrestling room, and some of the things that we're doing without them backing us.
And then back in your days as a wrestler, you were a national champion twice, in 2006 and 2008. How did that success translate into coaching success that you see now?
I think it's good to have credibility with guys. You know, and it's good to understand what it takes. I think it's good to also understand that everybody's journey is different. You know, and that sometimes I just need to step back and allow them to enjoy the journey, be a part of their journey, and serve them in whatever capacity I need to. Maybe it's less doing more, maybe it's doing less. So it's just a matter of knowing your guys well enough to say, hey, what do I need to do to help them be great and chase down their goals, and whatever the end result is, make sure it's what they need, right? They need to have the experiences they need to have to be the men they need to be.
And something tough about the end of a season is now you have to depart with some seniors. Could you tell me what those seniors have meant to this wrestling program?
Yeah, you've made a tremendous impact. Again, they, first winning season since 2009, first top 10 finish all time, and those are just kind of accolades, things that you're going to see on the walls. But I think as far as just their impact and their just being steadfast in chasing down what the vision of this place was. It probably wasn't an ideal place to come to when some of these guys came here. So for them to see, maybe even have more of a vision for what this could be, I got to commend them for that.
And could you talk us through what's next now for Mules Wrestling? The season ended, going into that kind of preseason now for next season. What work goes into? They get some time off? Is it straight to practice? How does that work out?
Traditionally we'll give them 2 weeks off, but we had guys in there yesterday, right? I think that's the culture you hope to have. Is I can say, hey, you can take 2 weeks off, but that just means they got 2 weeks that they have autonomy to come in and get the workouts they need. That's the desire and passion they need to have.
Well, Coach Garcia, thank you for spending some time with us today, and congratulations on that very successful season. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by a 2-time All-American. John Ridle is on right after this. Welcome back to Sportspage. In this next segment, we will be joined by 2-time All-American Mules wrestler John Ridle. John is a redshirt senior who took 6th place in the NCAA Division II Wrestling Championships in the 157-pound weight class. John Ridle joins us right now on Sportspage. And John, just thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to go back to the NCAA Division II Super Region 4 tournament. You entered the tournament ranked 10th in the nation in 157. You ended up being the runner-up in that tournament, then entered the national tournament ranked 8th in the nation. Did that change in rank affect you at all going into that national tournament?
No, I'd say the rankings in Division II is kind of weird. In Division I, you have a lot more media sources, and they rank the wrestlers. It's kind of more probably correct in the way that Division II, it's really just 12 out of the 60 coaches in Division II kind of put their 2 cents together. So the rankings, you never know what you're going to get. It's nice to be ranked because the more individuals you have ranked, that's kind of how they do the team rankings. So if you have more individuals, it's more, it looks better on your team. But the rankings, I've been ranked. We've had people ranked high and not do well at the regional, and it doesn't. Their season's over. So it's nice to be ranked, but you could be ranked number 1 and not have a great regional tournament and be sitting home at nationals. So it's nice to be ranked and see that my teammates are ranked, but I'd say it doesn't really affect me mentally about how I'm going to go about wrestling.
And in that super regional tournament, you kicked it off by a win by fall. How does a fast start like that help in a tournament like that super regional?
It's nice. Usually in a tournament format, the first match is always just it's closest to the weigh-in, so it's always going to be the toughest. So I'm kind of used to having barn burners sometimes in that first match where I'll start running out of gas a little bit, or it's just tough to that first 7 minutes off the weigh-in. But when you get a pin or a fast win there, it's always nice to be able to go recovering.
That win by fall was your 100th career victory. How exciting was that to reach that 100 number?
Definitely it was exciting. I think if anything, I just wanted when I started here at wrestling for UCM, it's been a while since we had someone get 100 wins. I'm not sure when the last UCM wrestler had it. So if anything, I just hope that, I was proud of it. I know a lot of people that have been watching me, alum and my family, were proud of it as well. But if anything, hopefully just some of the young wrestlers on the team right now can be inspired to go and break that and do it themselves.
And you reached that 100 number with a team that's in the MIAA conference, which is an absolute gauntlet of a conference. How does that help prepare you for postseason action?
The more times you have tough matches going into the postseason, the more you're going to be prepared. And it's tough when we're going out and facing these top teams when we could go face someone who is probably going to get our confidence up a little bit. We might beat them up compared to going and facing some top 5 teams in Kearney and Central Oklahoma, where those matches aren't going to be as easy, and they're going to push us. But I think by the end of the season, they're great for us.
That Super Region 4 tournament where it all started in the postseason was hosted here in Warrensburg. How important was that, maybe home mat advantage, if you will? In important was that for you?
I think for me it was important just because I like to stay in my routine. And when we're traveling a couple days out, we're going out to eat, we're eating different things. I'm kind of limited on what I could do and what I could have compared to this regional tournament. I ate what I always ate for breakfast, lunch, dinner, didn't have to worry about any travel. All the teams were coming to us. It's not we're going out and have to worry about things. It's just, and like Coach Garcia said, I think I heard it could be more of a mental thing too as well. But I think we wrestled well, and it was definitely a great event for UCM wrestling as a whole. And I hope we get to have it more here in the future.
And then moving to that national tournament, you did have to travel to that one. Could you take me through maybe those preparations that week between that super regional and the national tournament, and then those travel days?
The week in between, it's really we have a little bit of a break, so it's time to push our bodies a little bit, not as much as we did the next week leading up to it. But just really, we're 5 months into the season. We're not going to reinvent the wheel now. It's more just refining some things, maybe specific game plan strategies. And then this week was interesting because I'm not sure if you knew, this weekend was the D2 with the track and field, swimming and wrestling national championships. So it was pretty hectic over there in Indianapolis. Me, being from Chicago, I kind of like being over in the Midwest over there. I just enjoyed being there. It was weird. We traveled with the track team on the charter bus, which that's never something we've done with the wrestling team here while I've been here. But, it was fun. We left on Tuesday. It was nice to be over there situated. We were just, we were with each other for a while. It made it really easy to lock in and focus for the tournament.
And then that national tournament is a 2-day tournament as opposed to the super regional, which is 1 day. Does that make much of a difference to you?
Oh, for sure. When there's not, when it's just a 1-day tournament, you don't have to worry about what you're putting in fluid-wise and eating-wise throughout the day. You just want to be putting the best stuff in you that's going to help you perform best for your matches. But you can't really do that with a 2-day tournament. I've been in the past 2-day tournaments. Usually you get, so if I'm 157, that's my weight class. If you make it to the second day, you have to weigh in at about, you get 1 pound, so you'd have to weigh in 158. And there's been times where, myself and I've had teammates in other 2-day tournaments where, we get done wrestling day 1 at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then we got to go cut 3-4 pounds. So not having to deal with that like you said, the super region and any 1-day tournaments is definitely a big advantage. But at the same time, everyone's at that everyone's on the same playing field. So yeah, you're maybe not feeling as best as you can, but neither are your opponents as well. So, but back to your question, I love the 1-day tournament. Definitely a lot easier than a 2.
So after day 1 of the national tournament, you had picked up 2 wins and you had already reached All-American status. Is that something you think about going into day 2, or was it maybe cool to know you're already All-American, or is that kind of in the rear view until the end of day 2?
Looking back, it probably was on my mind a little bit, just because it was, and a lot of the pressure is kind of self-put on, but it was just a big relief, and a lot of pressure didn't have to deal with anymore, knowing that you kind of made it on that podium, that you were an All-American. But, definitely wanted to finish as high as I could. Won my first match that second day. Next 2 didn't necessarily go as I had planned to, but yeah, even if I got 8th, all 80 of those All-Americans definitely earned it. It's definitely, yeah, if people who got 8th, people who got 4th, again, pretty much all of them are tough. Yeah, you want it to get 3rd, but you want to get that next best thing. But regardless, it's something I'm proud of.
And you talked about that match that you won of day 2 in the national tournament. That was against the number 4 seed, Casey Barnett, and it was a 16-14 decision. That's an absolute shootout, a high-scoring match. Could you take me through that match and what it took to win that one?
Yeah, I actually probably should have gotten a tech fall that match. I was up tech fall 15 points. I was up by 12 early in the second period, just needed one more takedown. And you know, that's kind of been something that's happened my whole wrestling career. I'm someone who gets a lead and then, you know, they kind of come back and, you know, I hang on, and it's not ideal by any means, but that's kind of been my identity, and that's kind of how it's gone. You know, it's nice. Thankfully, when you score enough points, you can kind of do that. Definitely a hectic and crazy match. You know, that guy's kind of, I consider myself kind of a different or weird wrestler. He definitely was too. So, yeah, definitely a weird, crazy match.
And you said you consider yourself a weird wrestler. Could you maybe say why that would be?
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers, when they're taught at 5, 6, when they begin wrestling, they're taught to shoot and attack the legs. You know, that's not something I did a whole lot until these last couple of years of college. I'm really much more of a defensive wrestler, but actually after I've been in college a couple of years and coaches kind of know that, made it a little tougher. So definitely that's been a challenge these past couple of years. But overall, adding that offense has been definitely growth and something that's benefited me.
Your efforts in the national tournament, along with your teammates, helped UCM to 43 team points, a 7th place finish. That 43 points was the most ever in UCM history. How does it feel to be a part of that history?
It feels awesome, especially when I think back. I'm kind of surprised that 7th was the best we've ever done, just because I know we've had a bunch of great teams in the past, but it does make sense. 7th is top 10. We had a national champion, 2 other, you know, a mid and a high other All-American, then someone who lost in the blood round. Definitely was a great tournament. I know Coach Garcia is looking for more in the future, trying to get that team trophy, top 4. But for me, it feels right, especially I think back to my last 2 years. We were 1-18, I think, in duels, and just one of the absolute worst teams in Division II. So now my career's over. I'm leaving it as we're 7th in the nation. Definitely feels a lot better.
One wrestling match goes 7 minutes if it goes the distance, and that in itself is an absolute battle to get through, let alone a whole 1-day, 2-day tournament now. How do you work through a tournament like that? Especially, you talked about you have to worry about then maybe cutting day 2. How do you get through a tournament like that and place as high as you did?
Just take it one match at a time. You know, I actually was up 10-2 in my first match and got pinned, and had to come back after that. Definitely. You know, I had to reset my mind, not think about that for a little bit, because if you lose a match and you're carrying emotions over to the next one, probably not going to work out great for you. And you know, that's something that Coach Garcia does a great job kind of inspiring us. You know, you can't be thinking about you just got to, at the end of the day, you know, make that choice to just go compete for it. You know, you said 7 minutes. How are you going to use that 7 minutes? How are you going to maximize your abilities and try to do the things you want to achieve your goals in that 7 minutes? How are you going to make that choice?
The national championship this year, you talked about it earlier, was hosted in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was what the NCAA called the Division II National Championships Festival. And again, you've already talked about it a little bit, but how cool is that experience to see those other sports there along with wrestling?
I thought it was cool that we were all together. You know, we didn't watch a whole lot of the track or the swimming just because we were so caught up in what we had going on. But you know, Jacason Burks, national champion, he won it. I know we had people from the track team watching him. Great.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what does being a Mules wrestler mean to you?
Just being resilient. You know, you might not have the best resources, just go out there and do it.
So, John, congratulations on becoming a 2-time All-American, and best of luck in your future. That's all of the time we have for this episode. I'd like to thank our guests, Coach Cody Garcia and John Ridle, for joining me, and hope you'll tune in next time for Sports Page.